Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show. We get right to it. The great governor from the great state of Texas is on board. Governor Rick Perry is back with us. Governor, how are you?
Good, Sean. It's hot and dry in Texas, but we're pressing on and creating jobs down here.
You know, it is pretty interesting since, I guess, the stimulus, I guess you guys have created 47% of the jobs down there. And President Navy Corpsman Obama is and his supporters out there are trying to attack you as dumb. If 47% of all the jobs in the country were created by you, seems like you're doing something right down in Texas.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's kind of the same old attacks that they made on President Reagan and I guess every prominent, effective conservative. And you know, the better we do down here in Texas, my bet is the more they're going to attack us. And that's fine. You know, I think my record is going to stand the scrutiny of time across the country, and whether it was my time spent as an aircraft commander and as a TAC airlifter back in my Air Force days when I was a family farmer and rancher with my folks. And by the way, that's really hard work. Being on a dry land cotton farm, I think is one of the great testaments to faith and hard work. And you know, I've signed both sides of the paycheck. And getting down to the state of Texas, we have created an economy here that leads the nation in job creation. And that's what Americans care about. They want to see a leader who will stand up and say, listen, we're going to get America back to working again. And more than 1 million jobs during my term as governor have been created. At the same time, this country lost 2.5 million. You know, Sean, what's dumb is to oversee an economy that has lost that many millions of jobs, to put unemployment numbers that over his 4 years will stay probably at 9%, to downgrade the credit of this good country, to put fiscal policies in place that were a disaster back in the 30s and try them again in the 2000s. That's what I consider to be the definition of dumb.
So you know what the headline out of this interview is? Perry calls Obama policies dumb. Are you ready for that headline?
You know, here's going to be the issue. Americans are really ready for some leadership. You know, as I traveled across South Carolina and New Hampshire and Iowa, there were two emotions that were just, I mean, powerful in these meetings. I mean, these groups coming out. You know, we were in South Carolina. We had over 500 people at a breakfast meeting, and the fire marshal had another 150 outside that he wouldn't let inside. We were in Gaffney, South Carolina. They wouldn't even stop on our bus tour. The senator who was traveling with us, he said, "Listen, can we pull in over here to and Gaffney?" He said they know we're coming through and they just want to you know, wave and shake your hand. And I said, "Sure, pull in the parking lot." We came around the corner and there were 100+ people there. I mean, in a very small South Carolina town. And I got out shaking hands, and a lady walked up to me, Sean, and there were two emotions. One, elation of being able to, in her opinion, hopefully shaking the hand of the next president of the United States. But there was also palpable fear in her eyes. And she walked up and she said, "Governor," she said, "just give me, just share with me one thing that I can have hope that my small business is going to be able to stay open." And I said, "Ma'am, if I'm the president of the United States, I can promise you one thing: the boot of taxation and regulation is going to be off your neck." And she broke down and started crying. And we saw that across the country. People want to see a leader who has a real vision to get America working again, and we've done it in Texas.
What do you account for your just immediate surge in the polls? I mean, for example, I think you were pretty deliberative about thinking about if you're going to run, and you took your time and you decided to get into this. I think knowing the difficulties of anybody running for president. But as you look at, you know, the race, what do you think it is that put you right to the top?
Well, we're not an unknown quantity, and I do think that the record as governor of Texas for the last 10 years has had fairly good exposure across this country. You know, I haven't been on your program enough, but
by the way, I'm making an official formal complaint about that, Governor. And
I know.
But that's all right. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
You'll make it up to me as president.
I promise you I'll make it up. But the fact is, we're not an unknown, and people have seen what we've done as the leader of, Texas would be the 13th largest economy if it were a standalone economy, and it's not inconsequential what Texas does. We go to other states and we've competed for these jobs, and they've come to Texas. We've led the nation in the production and the creation of jobs, and these are jobs that, we've attracted technology to Texas and science and research jobs, eBay and Facebook and Caterpillar, Medtronics, other cutting-edge technology and manufacturing. Toyota, every pickup truck that Toyota makes in the world or I should say in the United States, is in Texas. So people have watched us, maybe not terrifically closely, but they know the story of Texas. They know there's something special going on here, and that the leadership that has been exhibited in Texas from the governor's position has been very powerful. And people are scared about the future of this country, and they want a leader that understands that all answers don't come out of Washington, D.C. Matter of fact, that's the problem right now of over-taxation, over-litigation, over-regulation, and they want to be freed from that. And they want to our country, you free the entrepreneur, the small businessman and woman, or for that matter, the Wall Street investor from the over-regulation and the over-taxation, and Americans will go to work tomorrow. But they're afraid right now. They're afraid of this monstrous debt of $14.7 trillion, which, by the way, translates to about $46,000 for every man, woman, and child. A baby that's born this moment in Maine has got a bill of $46,000 they're going to have to pay to cover the debt in this country.
Let me ask you this, because this is, I think, key. What do you make of what do you think the president did wrong? And what do you make of the fact that he seems obsessed with blaming either A, George W. Bush, or the tsunami earthquake in Japan, or C, the Arab Spring, for the lack of an economic turnaround?
I think surrounding himself with individuals who have all been academics, they've really not anybody on that close team to the president who's had real life experience of running anything. And I think that singularly, having academicians and academics who have gone to some great schools, and they are intellectually very, very smart, but he does not have wise men and women around him. And I think that's what his real problem is, that he has listened to the academics, he has listened to plenty smart people, but no one that truly has wisdom about the economy, wisdom about how you get a small business going and how it thrives, and for that matter, his foreign policy. And that's, you didn't ask about that, but just very wavering and aimless at best.
But I've watched this president, and I also listened to him, and I've looked at his background, and I think I pegged him pretty early that he's pretty radical in his own views, so he seemed to surround himself with people that supported, the spreading of the wealth around. It's our patriotic duty. Look, you're right about the debt. What do you make of the blame game that he's constantly involved in? And that is,
Sean, let me just say that there is a way to spread the wealth around, and that's to create jobs. and that's the real difference in this president. I think the folks on the Republican side, we understand that the way to create wealth is through the creation of jobs. And to create jobs, you got to lighten the load on the tax side, on the regulatory side, and free people to risk their capital and know that they got a chance to have a return on their investment.
Let me ask you, because it seems that everything that you've written and said over the course of your entire life now has already been made public. So it's been pretty fast and furious as you've gone up in the polls. How do you respond to, well, in 1988 you supported Al Gore, and in 1993 you wrote a letter to Hillary Clinton about her Hillary Care plan and seemingly supported it?
Right. Let me address the Gore issue first. And I was a Democrat in my days in the legislature in the 80s, and I was under the false idea that somehow or another that conservative Democrats could save the Democrat Party. They couldn't. Al Gore appeared to be the most conservative, strong strategic defense initiative guy, and frankly, we thought that he would be the most conservative Democrat. You know, we were wrong, and they picked a very liberal Democrat to run against George H.W. Bush, and that was, you know, kind of my final straw, and finished my transition to the Republican Party after voting for President Bush.
So you're sort of like Ronald Reagan. You feel the Democratic Party loved you?
Well, you know, I told Michael Reagan the other day, who, by the way, is just a great and strong supporter. I said, Michael, I said, you know, I love your dad, and he was part of the reason I became a Republican. But I said, I became a Republican sooner in my life than your dad did.